Looks like football, baby.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Fantasy Football Smackdown. I'm your host, Kyle August. You can follow me on Twitter at KyleMonth8, and it's good to be back on this Thursday Night Football, just about a little over an hour away from now. I'm getting you covered with all your start-sit questions for Week 6. So if you're watching on YouTube, then you must have those notifications turned on because we're just jumping on here. But if you have questions, drop them in the chat. We're going to sprinkle them throughout the show. If you're listening to this on the podcast, appreciate you tuning in. And thanks for all the support. Thanks for being subscribed wherever you listen to podcasts. But you're missing out. Come join us live every Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time, ahead of Thursday Night Football, taking your start-sit questions and going through some of my favorite starts and sits of the week. Of course, if you're not subscribed on YouTube, then you're missing out on waiver wire sniping as well every Saturday morning. That 8 to 10 minute show drops YouTube only, covers the players that you need to add off the wire ahead of kickoff so that you're not scrambling to add them on the wire like everybody else, burning that fab, wasting that waiver priority. So we got Nick in the chat. What's up, Nick? Thanks for jumping on here. But this should be another good week of fantasy football. Of course, everybody is aware by now the bye weeks are here. So make sure you adjust for that. There's going to be, I looked at the running backs, man. I don't know what it is because Kamara is out. Yeah, we get that. And, you got San Fran on bye and the Jets and the Falcons. But, man, I don't know. This seems just like there's a lot of players missing already. And this is just a light week, just 4 teams on bye. So waiver wire sniping is going to help you out with that, get you ahead, make sure that you're ahead of the curve on the rest of your league because a lot of people, man, they're just sitting around and then they look on Tuesday morning at that lineup to see, and then they got guys on bye. And they're missing out. So waiver wire sniping, the guys usually need to add to tack onto the end of your bench ahead of kickoff each week. Of course, we got that London kickoff as well this week. So a little PSA. If you guys are tuned in on things, you know by now. But just make sure you get those lineups set. I'm sure your commissioners will appreciate it, and so will you. So as the questions come into the chat, I'll throw them up here. We'll get to as many as possible. Otherwise, I got a start and sit at each position. Going to talk about those right now. So let's dive into it. Oh, yeah. And no Dallas today. He's been jumping on here the last few weeks, covered for me last week. But he's not here today, but we'll hopefully be back next week. We'll keep bringing on some guests here and there on Thursdays to just add to the fun. But let's start with the quarterbacks. I'm going with my start this week. The dude was literally in the hospital on Sunday, was a throat contusion or whatever, but I'm going Joe Burrow. He's been playing okay. He hasn't been a great, fantasy stud. But I think this week against the Detroit Lions, he's going to put up some pretty solid numbers. His connection with Jamar Chase has been off the charts already. Got T. Higgins back last week after a couple week missing for injury. But Joe Burrow on the road against the Detroit Lions. The Lions have been pretty good against quarterback. They've given up the 11th fewest fantasy points to the position. But I think this week, with all his full complement of weapons against this Detroit Lions defense, I know that they kept Kirk Cousins in check. I think Burrow is a solid start for me. He's QB 11, so I'm playing him over guys like Ryan Tannehill, Kirk Cousins, and even Taylor Heineke, who has a great matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs. So Heineke is somebody that you might have been rolling the last few weeks. I'm going to go with Joe Burrow this week. I think he's a solid start and somebody that you can trust. And taking a look at Cincinnati's schedule. They get at Baltimore, at the Jets the next 2 weeks. I know it's 3 road games, so I feel pretty good about those matchups as well. So if he's a guy that you're was sitting on your wire, you're looking to stream maybe this week, I think you can get multiple weeks out of him. My sit of the week at quarterback is going to be Derek Carr. He has a really, really tough matchup against Denver. I don't think we need to overthink this one. Denver has only given up 5 passing touchdowns on the entire season. The only quarterback that scored more than 20 fantasy points against the Denver Broncos in 4-point per passing touchdown is Daniel Jones, and he needed a rushing touchdown for that. So I think Derek Carr is somebody that is probably going to put up 230, 240 and 1. If he gets that second touchdown, I think he'll be lucky. This is a great Denver defense, and obviously lots going on in Vegas these days. So I think Derek Carr kind of stays back on the ground here after a disappointing week last week. I think that continues in week 6. So I'm sitting Derek Carr. I would start Carson Wentz. He's 32% owned. Heineke's 24% owned. I'd start both those guys, stream him over Derek Carr. I'd even start Big Ben against the Seahawks at home, even without Juju Smith-Schuster. So I'm starting Joe Burrow, sitting Derek Carr. Got some questions in the chat, so we're going to roll these up. Steve, he's got a question. This is got for tonight, man. So we got Gio or Chris Evans for a swing for the fences flex flyer. Ooh, yeah, that one's tough. I'm gonna go with Gio. I think even last week with limited touches for, well, I take that back because we have Samaje Perine on the COVID list. If you're swinging for the fences, I'm going to go with Chris Evans. I know he didn't get much work last week at all. Mixon was a limited participant on Wednesday, DNP on Thursday. That's the wrong way, obviously, if you're counting on Joe Mixon this week. Samaje Perine's been on the COVID list. Now, if he's activated and Mixon is, not an injury concern, you might be out of luck, and obviously you got to make the call on Gio tonight. But I think if you're swinging for the fences, it's Chris Evans. I don't expect Tampa Bay to be playing from behind against Philadelphia tonight, and that's the only time you're going to see Gio Bernard on the field for the Bucs. The only time he's been relevant is in that game where they were playing catch up and playing from behind, and he put up a monster game against the Rams late. So if you're swinging for the fences, I'm going to go with Chris Evans. But that one's tough, man. I would be searching the wire really hard to see, but I get it. If a lot of you guys are in some deeper leagues, hard to find those types of fill-in players. So I'd go with Evans, but man, that's pretty nasty. But best of luck to you, bro. If you have any other players that are on the wire you want to throw in the chat, let me hear them. We got Darren here. Appreciate it, bro. Thanks for coming on and hanging out with us. Any tight ends you would grab off the wire to start over Hockenson this week? Hawkinson's been dealing with the injury, was back at practice in some capacity on Thursday. Tight ends, obviously, wasteland right now. There are some decent streamers this week, but Hockenson against the Bengals, I'm still going to play Hockenson as long as if he's out there, he's in my lineup. And tight end is kind of tough like that. If you have one of those top 6-7 guys, you pretty much have to roll them. If you do want to try to get away from him just because the injury question mark, I know last week he was pretty disappointing. I would go, we have Ricky Seals-Jones against Kansas City. I expect that to be a shootout, and I do not expect Curtis Samuel to play. So there's just guys that, less bodies there right now for the football team. So I'd roll with him. He is 21% owned. He'd be the top line my list. And Dan Arnold would be another one. The Jacksonville game against Miami in London, Dan Arnold's only 8% owned. So I'd take a look at those two guys if you're looking to that could be on the wire that you could play over Hockenson if you just want to avoid the injury there with Hawk, which was clearly disappointing last week. But again, if he's active, he's in my lineup. He's just one of those guys. And it's a tight end position. So hopefully that helps, Darren. Appreciate the question. Appreciate you guys in here. If you're just joining me now on the show, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat and I'll get to them. Already covered the quarterback start and sit. Let's move on to the running backs this week. News came out late Thursday that Damian Williams for the Chicago Bears was placed on the COVID list. Now, obviously, that being done on Thursday, it's going to be really, really tough. I believe even if players are vaccinated, they need 2 negative tests back-to-back days. So it's pretty unlikely he's going to play. So I'm going to go with Khalil Herbert, who's the last man standing for the Chicago Bears, going up against the Green Bay Packers this week. Herbert split the carries pretty evenly, actually exactly evenly with Williams last week. Now, Williams had 3 targets to Herbert's 0, but I think this is a guy that you can trust in a week, especially with a few teams on bye and some guys banged up. This is a guy that I'm going to play as a top 24 running back this week, believe it or not. That's the joy of fantasy football sometimes. So I'm going to play Herbert over Myles Gaskin, who finally hit pay dirt and finally was relevant last week. I'm going to play over him. I'm playing him over Damian Harris, who's looking like he's going to suit up for the Patriots against the Cowboys. I play him over Josh Jacobs. I play him over Darrell Williams, who was the other waiver wire running back this week. So I'm going to go with Herbert. As far as over all those guys, again, he's right around 20th for me in my running back rankings. So I think you can go ahead and roll him. Even if Damian Williams is active, which I doubt is going to happen, Herbert could be a desperation type flex, as some deeper leagues. But I think without Damian Williams there, Herbert's just literally the last guy there. My sit of the week at running back is going to be Devonte Booker, the other waiver wire wonder this week. I don't like the matchup, man, against the Rams. They're mid-pack on the season. It's been kind of boom bust for them. They gave up a decent game to David Montgomery. Chase Edmonds had a long run against them. But Booker is going up against this Rams defense that held Jonathan Taylor, Alex Collins, and James Conner, who all had 15 or more carries, held them to 51 or fewer rushing yards. Not to mention you have Dan Jones kind of banged up. You have these receivers hopefully working their way back, but not at full strength. I don't like the setup for Booker. He's just not somebody that I was spending a lot of fab on Tuesday off the wire. So he's an okay flex if you need, but I would play both Arizona Cardinals running backs over him, Alex Collins, and I'd start J.D. McKissick too, especially in PPR. But even in half, I'm going to roll McKissick. So Booker's a guy that I know people are pretty high on just because he's the new hotness this week. But I just don't know if I trust this guy in a tougher matchup. So I'm going to start Herbert and sit Booker. Who would have guessed these are names we're talking about here in week 6 already? We're not even that far into the season. Before we move on to the wide receivers, David's got a question here. Appreciate you jumping on here, bro. We got Everett or Uzama or Gainwell in PPR tight end premium. I like the script for Gainwell tonight. I know he didn't get a lot of targets last week. If you're listening to this on a podcast, you're going to know whether I'm right or wrong pretty easily. I know it's tight end premium, but Uzama really just had the one game. He's just not a guy that I trust. Everett has Geno Smith under center, so I'm downgrading all the Seahawks across the board, and Everett hasn't been a guy that has broken out as much as fantasy owners would like. We've been desperate for those fringe tight ends to make that jump, and we've seen it with Schultz and Dawson Knox, but Everett just hasn't got there yet. So even in tight end premium, it is PPR, so I'm going to lean Gainwell. I would not be surprised to see him get a pretty decent workload tonight against Tampa. That game script should help him. So fingers crossed. I'm starting Gainwell in a couple spots as well. So best of luck. Appreciate the question, David. We got JAC jumping on here. Start Hurts tonight or Herbert against the Ravens. Those are two really good options. Obviously, Hurts has been solid. He's been a top 12 quarterback, I believe, every single week. Has a great matchup this week against Tampa Bay. But I'm not sitting Justin Herbert. He obviously is coming off a monster game. This Ravens defense gave up a pretty nice performance to Carson Wentz. They're coming off that Monday night game. I'm going to go with Herbert still. It is close. You have an embarrassment of riches there, my friend, to have those two quarterbacks. I know that I've seen Hurts ranked over Herbert in most places, but I'm going to stick with Herbert just because I think he has more upside. I think Hurts is just a guy that's been extremely solid. He's a QB1 for sure, but I just think it just doesn't have as much upside, even in this matchup against Tampa tonight. So I'm going to go with Herbert. But they're definitely closer this week even than normal based off of that. So hopefully that helps, man. Appreciate the question. All right. David chimes in here, giving a little context here. Philly cannot run against Tampa, so Gainwell was the plan. I agree. I do not expect Miles Sanders to do much tonight. He is completely and utterly buried, and I think that shapes up well for Gainwell, man. So as far as Everett, Uzama, or Gainwell, I think Gainwell's our play. Good luck, bro. Let me know how it goes. All right, wide receivers. Here we go. Start of the week. I mentioned earlier, Herbert and Booker. I mean, my God, we're talking about these guys not even halfway through the regular season here. I get it that the matchup is tough, but there is no way I'm sitting AJ Brown. I'm sorry. I've seen this dude outside the top 20 in a lot of places. I've seen some start-sit polls with this guy with some names that is just unbelievable how much he's getting buried. I know he was disappointing last week, first week off the injury, but he practiced last week pretty much in full, made it back. Now he's back for this game. It's going to be Sunday night against the Bills. Now, don't get me wrong. The Bills, they've been good, especially against wide receivers. They shut them down. Tyreek Hill just 1 week ago, but it's been consistent. The Bills have given up the fewest fantasy points to the position on the year. That includes just 2 receiving touchdowns on the entire season so far. So 5 weeks in, just 2 receiving touchdowns. But they've also played the corpse of Ben Roethlisberger in week 1. They played the Miami Dolphins, Washington football team, and Houston. That was before, obviously, Kansas City last week. So I'm not saying this isn't a tough matchup, but it's A.J. Brown, bro. I'm not benching this guy. I know he's gotten off to a rough start, but I think better days ahead for this guy. I think 2 weeks off the injury should help him as well. I have him as my wide receiver 10 this week. Devonte Adams, Tyreek Hill, if healthy. Stephon Diggs, Cooper Kupp, Hopkins, if healthy. Jefferson, McLaurin, Jamar Chase, and Keenan Allen. That's the list. Those are the guys I'm starting over A.J. Brown this week. So I'm rolling them out there. I'm not shying away from that. Also, too, this is a game, man. We're having fun. Can you imagine watching that game on Sunday night and watching A.J. Brown go off? I mean, yeah, it's frustrating when your players stink, but I think it stings just a little bit more when you bench a stud and he makes you pay. So that's just me, man. That is completely that shouldn't be considered analysis in any way. But I'm just going to add that little caveat. I have AJ Brown in a bunch of spots. He's in my lineup in every single one of them. So if you have those 9 wide receivers and you have 3 of them, play those guys and feel thrilled. But I'm starting AJ Brown, top 12 wide receiver for me. My sit of the week at wide receiver is Tyler Lockett. He went from kind of low end 1, high end 2 with Russell Wilson to with Geno Smith. In my opinion, he's a flex. Now we saw Smith come on. He threw a touchdown pass. That's great. And Lockett's obviously a great talent. But I obviously don't love the idea of starting a wide receiver with Geno Smith at quarterback in week 6 here. So I want to see it a little bit. I understand it might be hard to bench Lockett, but the Seahawks are at Pittsburgh. I would play Michael Pittman, Adam Thielen, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, both Bengals wide receivers, and Allen Robinson if he's healthy. I know he's been disappointing this year, but I'm going to play all those guys over Lockett, and all of those guys have been ranked under Tyler Lockett at Fantasy Pros consensus right now. So again, I think for Lockett, I have him at 33 in my rankings. So he's a little bit lower this week. I know the Pittsburgh defense has been pretty bad against receivers, but it's Geno freaking Smith. So if I get burned on this one, we'll see. I hate betting against good players. I'd rather tell you to sit the shit guys, but I'm going to sit Tyler Lockett this week if I can. All right, before we jump into everyone's favorite position, the tight end, of course. Darren's back here. We got Titans D or the Browns. Now, you guys always come out with these DST questions. And I think I'm down to like 2 leagues out of like 20 something that play with DSTs, but I try to keep up with it just for you guys. So we got the Browns this week going up against the Cardinals. That's going to be tough. And then you got the Titans this week going up against Buffalo. I honestly don't know if you could pick 2 worse teams to play there, Darren. So man, that's pretty bad. Let's take a look at the wire real quick. You let me know if these guys are in your league. I'm going all the way to the end here. Oh man. Over on Yahoo. Shoot. Vegas versus Denver is 16% owned. Miami is 30% owned. They get Jacksonville. You're really, really stuck there. I almost play Atlanta. Just play the team on bye and not to take a 0. That one's really tough, man. If I had to pick between those 2, I'd go with the Browns. They are, I believe they're at home. Double checking for you. Cleveland, yeah, they're at home. So there you go. I don't want to play anybody against the Bills right now. So hopefully there's better options. Double check that wire, bro. All right. Oof, I am not going to try to pronounce your name, bro. Extremely sorry. I'm horrible with names, so it's no offense, bro, but I'm going to go JP here. Should I trade away Shenault for Gronk? Shenault is on my bench. My tight end right now is Hawkinson, PPR. Personally, I think better days ahead for Shenault. You have Hawkinson, who's solid. I know he's banged up right now. So is Gronk. And while Gronk was obviously a touchdown monster, I don't anticipate him to be a high target guy, especially when you look at those other receivers on that team. So I'd stay the course with Shenault for right now. I know he just had the 1 catch last week, but dude, the kid's explosive. I think he'll work his way into more work. They'll throw the ball more there throughout the season. So I'm going to stick with Shenault for right now. I bet you could probably see it through this week. And even if he has a disappointing week this week, you might still be able to get Gronk off that guy's hands, but you could see it one more week. But that's the route I would go. I'd probably stick with Shenault. I'm also not a big fan of holding 2 tight ends, especially when one of them is TJ Hawkinson. So that's the route I would go, man. All right. Let me see here. We got this one's a little bit of a long one, but JAC is back. He said, I received a trade offer offering me Hunt for Hurts. No brainer. I'm reluctant only because having 2 great quarterbacks allows me to start based on the matchup. So totally get that, man. I don't think I'm of the opinion you can never have enough running backs. You're not only are bye weeks obviously here and hot and heavy, but injuries every single week, man. So I get it. Having the 2 elite quarterbacks gives you that advantage to play the matchup. But when one of them's Herbert, I think you're good to go, man. I think you can trade Hurts and just get Hunt for him. Honestly, I think that's a great offer for you. So I would take the running back there and feel pretty good about having additional depth at the tougher position. I don't know what your waiver wire looks like, but I bet you could still add another QB when needed when Herbert's on bye. Taking a quick look here. The Chargers, they have a bye in week 7, so keep an eye on that. That means if you trade Hurts, you're gonna need an instant replacement for Herbert next week. So just be aware of that. But yeah, man, I'm gonna take the running back depth if I can get that, and I think that's a great offer. In 1 QB leagues, it's really hard to move quarterbacks most of the time. So I think that's a good one. All right, tight end. If you guys have questions as we wrap this thing up, get them in the chat. But tight end start and sit. My tight end start this week, he was mentioned on the Thursday show as a pickup, somebody you could stream. And for me, he is top 12 this week. It's Ricky Seals-Jones, back from the dead. This is a boy, if you've been listening to me for a long time, I was hyping this dude when he was on the Cardinals. He sucked, but now he's back, and he's in Washington, and Logan Thomas is still out. Obviously, he's on IR. So this is a matchup for the Washington football team against Kansas City. They're going to have to keep up with this Chiefs offense. And that Chiefs defense is hot garbage. So with Curtis Samuel dinged up, they got Brown still on the mend. They don't really have a lot of targets there. So I like McLaurin, obviously, this week. I think is going to be a bomb as far as going off, man. I think he's going to be solid. McKissick, I think, is solid play this week, especially in PPR. But RSJ, if you need a tight end streamer this week, if you have Kyle Pitts, that's your guy. He's 21% owned in Yahoo League, so he still might be available. 13 targets in the last 2 games, including 9 last week. I know it wasn't a high number of catches, but this is my guy this week. I'd stream over Arnold. I'd start him over Conklin and Evan Ingram. And I'd also play him over Tunyon, obviously. I'd play him over both of the Patriots tight ends this week as well. If you have Zach Ertz, I'd play Zach Ertz tonight over him. Again, podcast. Hindsight's undefeated, so you might know how that one worked out. But I think RSJ is going to be a solid play this week for you guys. Sit of the week is Jared Cook. I believe he only had the 1 catch last week. It was late in that game. Parham's getting a lot of looks, especially down around the red zone. So I know Cook is coming out. He's 2 games removed from a really solid performance. But this week against the Ravens, I just think that he's not a guy that I'm looking to start. He's in a consensus top 12 or at Fantasy Pros. If Mike Williams is out, then that maybe gives him a little bit of a bump. But I would start Dan Arnold over him straight up, regardless of Williams' status. And if Williams is in, I would take the shot on David Njoku. I know I kind of crapped on him. He's not really a guy I want to go after or play because I feel like I'm chasing the points. But the way that team is shaping up right now, they're throwing a lot to the tight end. He gets the Cardinals. The Browns do. They're going to have to be chasing. So I'd even throw the dart at Njoku. I think he could get you 3 catches at least. I'm not sure if Cook can even get you there right now. So my sit of the week is Jared Cook. So my start at tight end is Ricky Seals-Jones. Sit is Jared Cook. Darren's back. We got another question. Going to hang out here for another minute or two. We got another couple questions in here, so I'm going to keep rolling. As long as you guys bring them, I will answer them here. Darren says, oh, man, we got Robbie Anderson, Zach Pascal, or Donovan Peoples-Jones. Man, this is the hard-hitting questions that I love that you guys bring because this is the scrap heap decision right here. I'm hoping that these guys are just players that you're forced to play because of bye weeks or you're in a super deep league. I can't play Donovan Peoples-Jones, man. This is a guy that I watch intently because I add him on a couple leagues, especially Dynasty. He's super young. There's 2 older guys that might be on the way out. But no, man, I think you got to play Anderson. I think he's the best wide receiver of this bunch. Carolina, double checking here just so I don't mix it up. They're at Minnesota this week. That's not a phenomenal matchup. But I do like what Robbie's been getting compared to Marshall there in Carolina. I think he's been a little bit more favored as far as targets go. Better day for Anderson than last week, I think. And Pascal, he's just kind of a touchdown or bust type guy, but T.Y. Hilton's still out. I know Pittman had a big game last week, but it's a great matchup for him. They should be able to do whatever they want against the Texans. So I'm going to go with Anderson and Pascal there. Man, Donovan Peoples-Jones, I wish he was a thing, but I'm going to pass on him this week. And we got Garrett. This one's coming tonight. Oh man, he's playing with me here because I love my boy. This is T. Higgins involved in this one, but standard flex start Devonta Smith, who's going tonight for the Eagles, or T. Higgins. I love T. Higgins. I hope better days ahead. I'm Roland Smith, man. I think he's gonna have a really, really solid night tonight. He's been really good at his rookie campaign through the first 5 weeks. And this is a game they're gonna be playing from behind. The game script should favor him this week. Cincy, I wouldn't be surprised if they get up on Detroit and kind of put that one away. So hopefully that results in T. Higgins getting some points. I like Higgins this week as a flex, but I think Smith's a low end too. So Garrett, that's where I would go, man. I'd go Smith, get him in your lineup for tonight, and fingers crossed that hits right away and you're feeling good. nothing's better than big points on Thursday night as you're looking at that matchup all weekend, feeling that you already got an advantage. So I think that about wraps this up. So I'll sign off here. If we get any questions, I'll jump on here at the end. But I just want to remind you guys, appreciate you tuning into this show, 7 p.m. Eastern time, every Thursday night here live on the Warzone YouTube channel, taking all your questions, giving you my favorite starts and sits, have a guest here once in a while as well. Every Saturday morning on the YouTube channel, waiver wire sniping, covering the players that you can tack on at the end of your bench for free so that you're ahead of the waiver wire for the following week. I've had some really solid hits there that when it hits, man, you feel good. You feel like you didn't have to chase these guys down. And, when those players are appearing everywhere now, everyone can get information. Nothing's hidden anymore. So this is a strategy that gets you ahead of the game. And I believe Memphis is going to be back this week with Sunday School with Memphis. I'm going to try to jump on there as well. Got the London game early, so we'll see. Maybe we'll be watching some football together. But stay tuned for that. Obviously, subscribe if you're listening to this on the podcast and you're not already. Subscribe, rate, and review the show. Follow me on Twitter at KyleMonth8. Hit me with any of your start-sit questions there as well throughout the weekend if you have them. Till then, boys, appreciate you tuning into the show. I'll be back Saturday with waiver wire sniping. And then, of course, hopefully you guys all pick up a dub in week 6 and be back on next Tuesday with waiver wire heading into week 7. So until then, you boys take it easy. Have a good Thursday night. We'll catch you later. See you.